want to talk to you today about a project that we did at the Encirc glass production facility at Eltham. To introduce myself, I'm Chris Grummett. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I've been with TBA 21 years, so you've probably seen me about. Just start with a bit about Encirc as a company. So Encirc make glass containers, many various forms, and as part of Vidrala they've got sites all around Europe. They also offer what they term the 360-degree service. So as well as producing the glass, they store it, they ship it directly to customers, and they also have an advanced filling lines at Eltham. Encirc had Autostore from 2005, so it was one of my first projects actually with the company, and it had not been upgraded. It had been upgraded in the version, but there was issues with it. There was obviously some of the software was becoming obsolete, like Oracle. It was running on 11G, so it was well out of service. So there was a real push to get this upgraded. So just going to touch on now is what we did, how we did it, and also, more importantly for us, what was learned. So Encirc, it's a huge site. It's got 256,000 pallet storage locations. It is the largest automated warehouse in Europe for pallet storage. It operates on 2 levels. There's 3 kilometres of conveyor and there's 24 stacker cranes in these aisles. So there's 1,200 separate conveyor sections, and there's 12 conveyor PLCs just operating that, plus the 24 PLCs, 1 on each crane. The site itself, as it's a production facility and producing glass, operates 365 days a year. It doesn't shut down, 24 hours a day. So, upgrading the existing system. Like I said, we were there at the very start with Encirc. They were literally building it round us when we were starting their commissioning. It was a proper building site, and so we knew the site very well, especially the automation layer and the operation itself. We built up with it. The challenges that we had was that Oracle was at the end of life. The product, it had been with us for a long time, but because it had stayed in a version, and it had evolved and changed in that version, it had become quite niche, and the knowledge in TBA had become quite limited to the people that were working on it, because it wasn't a standard product. Because it's a production site, we couldn't lose we couldn't have the downtime that we perhaps normally enjoy at other warehouses, where we can ask for, can we have the warehouse on Saturday all day to commission. And also we started this in the spring of 2020, and so COVID was in full force and we were all locked up in our houses. So what we wanted to do was move towards our standard product, which is what you've heard about this morning, the V6 product. So obviously that would allow and spread, the knowledge of that product is already quite well spread through the company, and so it would de-risk from Encirc's point of view, people not understanding, not knowing the operation. It also meant, as Darryl and Jago were saying earlier, we had to look at the products, because everything at Encirc is a huge scale. So we were looking at 1 million messages a day, because the Autostore product, because we're the WCS there as well as the WMS, we actually communicate to the PLCs and drive the PLCs by section. So there's 1,200 sections. There could be 600, probably 600 pallet moves at any one time on the conveyor if it's busy. Each one of them requiring a message. We're getting feedback to say that it had moved there, plus all the messaging for the cranes as well. So we needed to do something to cope with that volume of the messages itself. And also, we have to adapt our working processes to fit around the limitations. Every automated warehouse is limited by its layout, and also obviously trying to emulate the warehouse so that a lot of testing could be done offline before we got to on site. So really, once we got to site, effectively, it's almost like a rubber stamping exercise. So, how it finished, we got a standard product with site-specific customisations, because every site has its own needs and changes. An improved toolset, obviously, we upgraded Oracle, but as part of that, we also upgraded the operating system that the servers or Encirc did. And with new technology comes more things that we can do. And obviously, with our changes that we had to do for commissioning, we minimised the downtime and, well, it exceeded expectations on the minimised downtime. And we, as part of this project, evolved a really close collaborative relationship, not just with the MHE, but with the product as a whole. So, project considerations. There's two furnaces, two big drop furnaces at the site, sit at one end, glass comes out, rolls down the production lines into the warehouse, and then either filled. These furnaces never get turned off except for maintenance, which is every few years. And because of their nature, you cannot just switch them on and off. It takes 2 weeks to turn them off, because you have to drop the temperature gradually, and again 2 weeks to power them up. So any disruption to that process, any disruption to the flow through that process, causes major problems. It runs 24/7 and produces over 2 million bottles a year, so there's a constant flow into the system. And obviously, the 360-degree service, we need to store glass, we need to provide glass to the filling lines, we need to provide glass to dispatch, filled stock to dispatch. So there really was a big pressure on not bringing the system to a halt. So, how we approach this. From the start, and again, in collaboration with Encirc, we put together a team from TBA and from Encirc, and the team worked as a team. It wasn't Encirc, TBA, and we got together now, and then we're actually embedded with them. We had our own room at Encirc that was ours for the length of the project, and Encirc had a core team that stayed with the project all through the commissioning, UAT, and then that team became the super users that trained the users throughout the system, and became sort of like a hit squad for problems after go live. Remote working was a big one. So normally at the start of any project, we have the workshops. We get together, we find out how your operation works and how your system will fit in with us, or we will fit in with your system. Now, normally we get locked in a room for a week or two, and we'll get on the whiteboards. Obviously, we're in the middle of lockdown, so we had to use Teams, or probably Zoom then, it might have been in that time, and come up with ways of doing that. Obviously, in that time we were thinking it's, you can't do a full day on a Zoom call or a Teams call. Remote working, it's a lot, so we have to split the workshops down into bite-sized pieces and work out how we could share stuff. Environment preparation, as I said, Encirc were brilliant. They gave us room, they gave us the equipment. We just had to go in, plug in, and we had access to the CCTV to be able to monitor what was happening in the tests. And we could also bring in other members of the Encirc operation, like the transport planning, customer services, production, filling, and they could sit in with us and look at the system. Commissioning, this was the big one. So like I said, on all the previous slides I'm building up to, this is the bit we had to change our whole approach. So normally we'll ask for the warehouse, we'll say, can we have it for a day at the weekend or something like that. Often it's in the middle of the night, if the operation's quiet, then they'll, I've commissioned overnight before. But obviously we weren't going to get that time. But we needed time because of the size of the system and because of the number of PLCs that we had to test. So we had to come up with an approach that would work for them and work for us as well. So what we came up with was dual running the system. So because of its nature and its layout, we could take parts of the Encirc system, connect them to the new server, put them out of service on the old system, give an Encirc use of the conveyors and on the different levels. So where we'd take the downstairs, an Encirc would use upstairs, so they could still input, more importantly, input the glass, but they could output to fill in and they could output to dispatch as well. And then we'd take 2 cranes as well from the system. They'd be out of service on the old system. That gave us the ability, on a small scale, to do all the tests we need, inputs, outputs, testing conveyor fault recoveries, and crane fault recoveries. And I think that was probably one of the biggest successes of the project, because I think, as we said on the previous slide, Encirc were delighted with the results that we got. The actual amount of downtime that, well, we didn't get was really good. And obviously, deployment, no commissioning plan survives first contact with the site. So we always start out with the best intentions, and as things came up, not always under our control, but obviously, you know, a site might have a really busy day or a really urgent load that they need to get out. We perhaps had to delay commissioning to start with, or, you know, network outages or something like that. Obviously, we had to be flexible and adapt that plan. Right, so the key aims and objectives for the project was to include, obviously with the upgrading the software, new functionality. So as part of their offering to the customers, Encirc wanted to offer case picking. So they wanted to be able to pick pallets for supermarkets and things like that. It wasn't possible so much in the old system, but as part of this project, we included that, and obviously they had other improvements with the Mimic and the emulation that I spoke about. So the emulation is effectively us behaving like the PLCs and allowing the system to run as if it was connected to the live system. So with the emulation, we could actually run pallets into the warehouse, run them out, do the crane recoveries, do conveyor recoveries. So effectively, you're always going to get surprises, because the emulation is how we've been told the PLCs work, and sometimes that's not quite the same. So you always get surprises, but I think from my point of view, it was really good. We just got there, we connected, and it worked. The move to V6 was certainly a godsend. The old VB client used to actually be installed on a PC. So when we did an upgrade for them, they had to go around and update individually, sort of 60, 70 PCs. And now, with the move to V6, just click on an icon, it automatically downloads the latest version. Mitigate risks. So this is obviously moving to a standard product. Before, they had a bespoke interface. It was a bespoke version of the product, and by doing the project, we increased the support resourcing and obviously adapted the standard product that more people had exposure to, which removed a critical risk. Certainly from Encirc's point of view, that there wasn't many people in the company that understood the site. Reliability and uptime, wanted to minimise the disruption to the supply chain, just the supply to fill in, so the internal supply chain as well as the external supply chain. As Danny has said to me many times, the warehouse at Encirc is invisible in the company until it goes wrong. Then his phone's red hot. And obviously, replacing the end-of-life stuff, so obsolescence of Oracle 11G, and obviously we patched up to the latest version in Red Hat. The latest version of Red Hat was installed then as well. So, the results. We had, because of how the plan went and the quality of execution, we delivered it on time and actually came in early on the commissioning. I think we put 12 weeks aside for commissioning, and we did it in 9. And again, But using the model that we did allowed us to test with a larger number of pallets, so we could really give it a good test. Quality, the project as a whole was QA'd before it went into UAT, meaning that we had nominal defects when it actually came into the UAT part of the operation. Timelines. So during the middle of the project, just as we were starting the commissioning, Encirc had a critical need to change the parts of the physical conveyor layout, which we had to do in the old version, and obviously then the new version as well as we were writing it. So we had to effectively pause the project for a month to do this mini project and then start again. But again, we flexed, we worked around it, and we still delivered the main project on time as well as getting this in. And obviously production, minimal disruption to production, and we actually, on the final day of commissioning, normally, final week of commissioning, we take the whole warehouse and we run it how it would be run, which is obviously, we know, is an inherent problem with Encirc. So what we did with Encirc, we used their live production for a period to test the system, which meant that for the final weekend of commissioning, we actually had 1,500 pallet moves, I think, which is the most I've ever used on commission. Normally we get about 6 stacks of pallets that we get to put in and move around. But so it had before we even went live, we had a really good test on that. And obviously, Encirc quoted to me that the approach that we took reduced our commissioning downtime by 45%. So business benefits for us and Encirc. They've got a standard supportable product with the standard interface that they're now using now. So they're on our standard XML interface. Process improvements, while we were there, obviously V6 gave them more features that they could take advantage of. We had obviously the collaboration that we had during the commissioning and the UAT has continued, and we've used that to great effect, and they're still continuing to ask us for enhancements on the product, which are taking the product forward. And obviously said we've got an improved tool set. So at the start of the project, Encirc calculated how much potentially we would impact the actual flow of glass, how much they might have to do. They can store glass on the floor for a period, but obviously as that builds up, there's a weight problem because it's on floor 1. So it was critical that we dealt with that. But actually, against their expected figures, it was a 90% less impact than what they'd planned for. Everything about Encirc is scale. Now, we had, as has already been discussed, the Oracle data bus for transferring messages between our systems. As you can see from the mimic diagram there, so that's actually a visualization of the live MHE plan. Each one of those black dots is getting a message. So 1 million messages a day. That's just from the MHE layer. Obviously, any interactions that the client have, that the users have with the client, also generates messages as well. So we had to change Autostore to brought in ActiveMQ as part of the standard product. In the old version, each mimic executed the SQL to get the data back. So if you've got 30 users using the mimic and it refreshes every 5 seconds, you had these 30 PCs querying the conveyor data and the cranes data. And obviously we show much more than just the conveyors. These are the marshalling lanes here that show the status of the loads running to them. And it did cause an impact on performance of the system. So we completely scrapped how we did the mimic, the MHE plan, and we produced a single service, push service, which garnered all the data that was required out of the database and broadcast it to the client. So the clients are completely passive now in this when the mimic's being run. All they do is take the information that's sent to them and display it. And obviously, as I said, Encirc is a key partner in defining the future roadmap for the WCS and WMCS, so the warehouse management and the control system. Mark Williams was the project manager for Encirc. He said that our understanding, not just the Encirc warehouse, but their whole operation, has allowed us to innovate and come up with a plan that had very little impact on the system. So with seamless commissioning and minimum downtime, we've given them a supportable environment. For me, the main takeaway from this is that a lot of the lessons learnt and a lot of the stuff that we did here, we have taken as standard practice now. So the current project I'm working on, which is another automated warehouse, we are, again, doing the dual running so that we're allowing the customer to be able to use their system now while we're commissioning. And that has allowed us, for the first time in my 21 years, to actually commission on a weekday. So we're commissioning from sort of 9 till 2, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And you know, that's unheard of.